Get. Top of the morning, afternoon, night, depending on where you at. It's the Pope, your host that do the most. Welcome to the Just Being Frank show. We got to talk about the Karmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf case. Tragic loss. Austin Metcalf and his family lost his life by the hands of Karmelo Anthony. That's not alleged on Karmelo Anthony's account. He took his life at a track meet. They both running track for they opposite high schools. Austin goes to Memorial, and I believe Karmelo went to something like Centennial or something like that. Both schools is in Frisco, Texas. So, which is a suburban area, right? Nice area and all of that good stuff. Now, again, all this race baiting that's been happening in this case is just beyond ridiculous. I don't even think it had nothing to do with race, but of course, the race baiters in our world today, in this country, boy, they making it just as that. You have a white kid, you have a black kid. And so, it's racism involved in this. Racism had to play some part in this. The reason why the white kid went up to the black kid, probably most likely in race baiters' mind, it's because he was black. If it was a white boy sitting there, not from that school, underneath Memorial's tent, would they have said anything? I believe yes. Austin Metcalf and his twin brother approached Karmelo Anthony because he was sitting in the wrong spot underneath the school's tent, where, again, a lot of these kids have iPhones and Apple Watches and all kind of stuff that's worth some money. iPads and tablets and stuff that's worth money. You don't want an outsider inside your tent where you leaving your bags and stuff like that, and then you got to go run your heat. You don't want to leave your bag in there and have unknowns in your tent. So yeah, I would think whether you're black or white, you unknown, man, you would, go find your tent. Because I don't want to leave my Apple Watch and my iPhone and my Samsungs, and I don't want to leave that here with people that we don't know who is who. So, again, the fact that black people are screaming self-defense because Karmelo claims that Austin put his hands on him. Putting your hands on somebody does not warrant for you to stab them or shoot them. That's not the rule. That's not the law of self-defense. Because somebody put their hands on you, whether it's punch you. Now, if they're punching you repeatedly and you about to go unconscious, that's understand. But a one punch don't even warrant a shot or a stab to the other person. It just doesn't. And I know for a fact, that's what's so disgusting about this. I know for a fact, had the roles been reversed, all the black people screaming self-defense wouldn't be screaming self-defense for if it was a white kid who stabbed a black kid. They wouldn't scream self-defense. You wouldn't have certain people coming up to defend black people, to defend Austin Metcalf if he was the suspect and Karmelo Anthony was the victim. No. They'd be screaming and had that white boy hung. Literally hung if the roles was reversed. So the fact that people all of a sudden, black people especially, can look at this case from what we know on the accounts of all the witness testimonies and all of that type of stuff, right? And even on account of what Karmelo Anthony said to the police, that he's the one did it, it's not alleged. He did it, right? And he put his hands on me, and I told him not to put his hands on me. Not that he said he was going to kill me. Not that I thought he had a knife or he had a gun and I just got to mine first. None of that. None of the real endangerment to his life, except for he put his hands on me. You guys are in high school. You're teenagers. Fighting is damn near like a part of life at that age. So even if a person put their hands on you in teenage status, that's a knuckle up game. Okay, that's not a take my knife or take my gun out and kill you game, right? So let's get into this, man. I got a video I want to react to from Black conservative perspective. Love his channel. Go check his channel out if you haven't. He always dropping jewels. I'm gonna just let it play because he really break down a lot of the race baiting and a lot of BS that's going on in this case, especially with Black people. So let's check it out.
With the 75 people they say they interviewed, did they say anything about video was recording?
Yes, they have collected video.
Ooh.
So it is video of the incident?
Yes. They have collected video.
Okay.
There is video of the actual stabbing?
There is video. There are several different videos that they verified.
Why were you armed? Karmelo, why were you armed at school? Explain your self-defense. How is this self-defense?
Excuse me. Every Texan has the right to defend themselves when they reasonably fear for their life. Self-defense is a protection that applies to each and every one of us. There are two sides to every story. And Karmelo is a 17-year-old kid and an excellent student.
I jumped for joy when I heard the news earlier today because Karmelo Anthony deserves to be at home with his family. He was put in a tough situation, and as a 17-year-old child, he acted out of fear. And I just don't understand how y'all cannot see that.
The moment I found out about the Karmelo Anthony's case in Frisco, Texas, this was my first thoughts, my very first thoughts. Anybody that has ever been in Frisco, stayed in Arlington, Dallas area, I mean, just no Texas, period. You know, Frisco don't like us like that. Nothing else really matters. That's why, in my opinion, we learned of who he was. And his picture was on the internet less than, 24 to 48 hours? This is why the racism is at an all-time high. It was in Frisco, Texas. It don't even matter if it was self-defense or not. If the county itself is racist.
All right, guys. So
hold on before you get started. If the county itself is racist, like, show fact and proof of the county is racist. Again, talking about racism at an all-time high. No, it's actually at an all-time low compared to where we used to be. So who told you that? Who taught you that? In this county, the racism at an all-time high. Where's the facts of this? Or is this just your stance on it? That's ridiculous. Let's go.
So once again, we got to talk about the viral story out of Frisco, Texas, involving Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony. Now, everybody should know the Austin Metcalf, Karmelo Anthony story. Okay, this is one of the biggest stories in the news because of the racial nature of this story. Okay, you have a Black teenager, Karmelo Anthony, stabbing Austin Metcalf, a white teenager, in the chest during a track meet because allegedly, according to witness testimony, Austin Metcalf, the white teenager, had approached Karmelo Anthony, the Black teenager, about the fact that Karmelo Anthony was in the wrong seat, right? He was under the wrong tent, and Austin Metcalf had approached Karmelo Anthony and told him to move. Karmelo Anthony says, "Touch me and see what happens." And at that point, there's some type of physical altercation. Presumably, Austin Metcalf had touched Karmelo Anthony. Now, what does that mean? At this point in time, we really don't know the nature of the touch that made Karmelo Anthony allegedly feel as if he could stab Austin Metcalf in the chest in self-defense. That would be a justified action. But according to witness testimony, okay, it is likely that at the time in which Karmelo Anthony had warned Austin, "Hey, touch me and see what happens," Karmelo Anthony had reached in his bag, okay, presumably grabbing a knife. And at that point, Austin pushed Karmelo. Okay, the nature of the touching was a push or a shove. And at that point, Karmelo Anthony decides to stab Austin Metcalf in the chest. Okay, and then he ran away. He got caught by police, was arrested, thrown in jail, charged with murder. He's claiming self-defense, and now he has been released on bond. Okay, because a woke judge.
Now, when we can have, summer interns come up, and they are every race, creed, color, gender, but they can see someone that looks like them on the bench. I think that is so beneficial because it's representation. And when they look at me, young kids, law students, whoever it is, I want them to say, if she can do it, I can do it too.
Decided that $1 million was too much and dropped it to 250,000 after a lot of pressure from the woke activists, because the woke activists, the race hustlers, are really, really, really rooting for Karmelo Anthony. And the primary reason, clearly, is because Karmelo Anthony is black and Austin Metcalf is white, right? That's it. Because the race hustlers, a vast majority of them, their claims are not grounded in reality. They're making up stuff. They also don't really understand self-defense.
Yeah.
They are not making good faith arguments for self-defense. And that's really what I want to talk about in this story, because what is happening is exactly what I said what happened at the beginning of this story. I told you guys that you're not going to be able to argue with these people who are going to defend Karmelo Anthony, because they're not defending him based off any type of logic, facts,
None.
law, nothing. It's just race. It's literally a racial thing for them.
That's
okay.
it.
And that's clearly what is happening. Okay. Which kind of says a lot about race relations in this country. So I want to talk about that.
Man. Like, that's just crazy. Again, like I said, if you reverse the roles, you wouldn't hear none of these black people talking about this as self-defense. They're only saying that because he's a black kid. That's just a damn shame.
I really do want to talk about that, because some of the things that are just being made up by the race hustlers in order to defend Karmelo Anthony, again, it's wild, right? It's mind-boggling, to be honest with you. But again, this is what you do when you don't have a strong defense. So without further ado, let's listen to this news clip to get the latest on this Karmelo Anthony story.
What you're seeing right now is the 17-year-old accused of murder walking out of the Collin County Jail this afternoon after posting bond. Thanks for joining us here at 5 on a Monday. I'm Nicole Baker.
And I'm Doug Dunbar. So let's dive into it. Karmelo Anthony had been in jail since the 2nd of April, accused still today of killing another teenager. That's Austin Metcalf. And that accused killing happened at a track meet at a high school. Today, a judge reduced Anthony's bond from $1 million all the way down to $250,000. JD Miles was there for it. He's live for us right now outside the Collin County Jail. Anthony just left. We saw the video. What else do we need to know?
Now, before he say what he got to say, let me say this. I don't mind the judge reducing the bond and giving him a bond. He's not a threat to society like that. He's not a danger to himself or to society like that. He's not a career criminal. He's not a person that's going to have witnesses, something done to witnesses that's going to stand up in court. Nothing like that. So them reducing it to an affordable price to where they can get him out, especially with knowing, if you know the facts of the case, a lot of the evidence in the case already, which the judge may or may not. But, if this kid, he about to go to prison for a very long time, then yeah, let him go spend a little time at home with his parents for while this trial is taking place. Because again, most likely, bro, when the evidence come out in the video footage and all of that type of stuff, we shall see. I don't know. But from just off of his account, Karmelo Anthony, and all of the eyewitness testimony, everything is saying the kid just stabbed him because he grabbed him, not punched him, not they jumped him, none of that. That's not the story from most of the eyewitnesses. And so if the video footage backs that up, then yeah, he going down for a very long time.
That's right, Doug and Nicole. Just 6 hours or about that much time after a judge lowered his bond, Karmelo Anthony was released. The judge who made the decision warned the accused murderer that if he violates any terms of his probation or tries to leave his home, he will be brought back right here to the Collin County Jail.
Karmelo, do you have anything that you'd like to say to the victim?
Karmelo Anthony emerged from the Collin County Jail 13 days after his arrest for the murder of Austin Metcalf. The high school student had nothing to say as he headed to his parents' home, where he will be confined to an ankle monitor. It's the result of a hearing this morning over whether to lower his bond. The families of both Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf arrived at the Collin County Courthouse this morning with extra security in and around the courtroom. A new defense attorney representing the Frisco teen accused of murder had his client's father testify about his son's character, telling the judge he was a captain of his football and track teams and that he held 2 jobs while in school. He's an A student, said Andrew Anthony. Does he have plans to go to college? Yes, sir. And prior to that,
he was going to be an astronaut, right? Which is what they say every single time. Every single time you have stories like this, it's always the same thing over and over and over again. He was an astronaut in the making, right? He was going to go on to do amazing things, right? This is what they say. That is the family side of the story. However, you do have other sides of the story in regards to Karmelo Anthony's character.
Centennial students shocked about what happened, that one of their classmates could be charged with such a serious offense. One girl that we spoke with knew Anthony pretty well, that she says, and told us this.
I'm in shock because it's like, I wouldn't expect that from him. I only know him fighting and stuff, like, you know, but to take someone's life is just like a different level.
Yeah, so that was a classmate of Karmelo Anthony, and I would say that she's probably likely to be less biased than the family. And she says, hey, I didn't expect him to go out there and start murdering people, right? I'm surprised by that. I'm pretty sure most people don't expect their teenage classmates to murder people. Okay, so no surprises there. But she says, you know, I know him for fights and stuff, right? Fights and stuff.
I know him for fights. I know him for fights. I'm going to pause this right there real quick. Give me big screen, please. So the narrative that was he was getting bullied by these kids, or he possibly, that's why he carries a knife, because he been getting bullied. From his classmates' account, he's a fighter. He with all of the smoke. He with the smoke. No pun intended. But that's what the classmates say. And it don't look like she trying to really throw him under the bus like that. She like, I don't know him for, I would never thought he would have did nothing like that. You know what I'm saying? I only know him for fights. She didn't say it like trying to throw him under the bus. Like Karmelo Anthony, oh, he's crazy. He's at school all the time starting trouble. No, she like, no, he's smooth. He cool. I wouldn't even think he would have done something like that. I just know him to get into little scuffles. So meaning he's very confrontational. Right? Right, he's confrontational. So if somebody come tell a kid who's used to fighting and getting into scuffles, somebody, especially white kid, come approach you and say, you got to leave. You got to get up out of here. Karmelo Anthony ain't no punk, according to his classmate. He with that. You think that type of kid is gonna say, "Oh, okay, man, I'll get up out of here," or you think they'll pop off like, "Who is you? And what you gonna do if I don't?" Like, come on, man. Let's stop being fake and phony. Karmelo Anthony was a fighter who had a knife in his bag, got approached by a white boy to leave the tent. What do you think that kid with a knife in his bag who's a fighter, who with all the smoke, what you think his response is to that for real? Phony balonies.
Sad, right? Do straight A, model students get in fights? I guess, right? Maybe,
no.
But when I was in high school,
straight A model students don't get into fights. I have a few. It's my kids. No.
Cool. When I was in school,
I also have a daughter who likes to fight. And she's not a straight A model student. No, I got both sides. I got a daughter who likes to fight. And to say the wrong thing to her, you might get chinned. I try to tell her, I don't do that. I didn't raise her like that. It's in her, not on her. Okay? But I got kids that don't fight, straight A model students. They go to school. And I also got a kid that likes to fight. And she don't got no F's or nothing, but she ain't really a model student.
The kids that tended to be kind of the nerdy ones, again, the model students, the straight A students, the type of students that the family and the race hustlers are trying to say that Karmelo Anthony was, which I'm not saying that he wasn't. I'm just saying those students tend to not get in fights, right? They tend to avoid fights at all costs, right? I don't think any of the smart kids I knew in school were known for getting in fights and stuff. That's all I'm saying, right? And if he did get in fights and stuff, to me, again, that would signal that there, probably some anger issues going on.
Correct.
Which could
because now doesn't mean that no straight A student, model student don't get into fights. I'm not saying that. We're talking about majority. So the majority of A students, model students, no, they don't get into fights. I had a few homies growing up that actually was. Now I just thought about that. God rest his soul. Rest in peace, P-Mac. God rest his soul. Shout out to my boy Chris. But them dudes used to ditch and with me and would get into scuffles in the blink of an eye. My boy P-Mac, God rest his soul, he was cripping heavy, but he had 4.0. He had 3.8, 4.0. You would average that out. So did Chris, right? Some of them just it's like, yeah, I'm with all of that, right? But when it comes to this is easy peasy, and here you go. There it is. A plus, A plus, A plus. Maybe that was Karmelo Anthony, because he definitely was a 3.8, 4.0 student, I believe. From what they've said, his parents and them said this. So I want to take their word. Okay, I don't want to have to Google something like that. If your parents say this is what he is, I'm sure anybody can research it. Let me know in the comments if you know better. But sound like he can handle the work in school, no problem. But his attitude and his anger issues, he still was one of those students that had that problem. And again, that's maybe most likely hip hop culture that's destroying Black culture. Because he's a student and all of that, athlete and all of that, but yeah, he still think he a thug, and he live in Frisco, Texas.
Could have contributed to what happened at the track meet. Just say it. Just use a little common sense.
Use a little common sense.
What was on his mind was what college he was going to go to. This is a tragedy.
On his mind, what college he was going to go to. So let me take this knife with me to the heat. Let me take this knife with me to the track meet, because I'm worried about what college I'm going to go to. Now, it seemed like he had a little more. He was worried about a little more than that, man.
All the way around for both families.
Anthony, who told Frisco police he stabbed 17-year-old Austin Metcalf at a track meet in self-defense.
He told Frisco police. See, again, it said alleged.
After an altercation, sat in a jail jumpsuit and shackles, while prosecutors challenged how the father could not afford the 10% needed for $1 million bond, with an online donation fund that's up to $400,000 and growing. With access to over $400,000, why haven't you bonded him out yet? Asked the prosecutor. We don't have access to that money, replied the father.
It's hard for everybody to be level-headed at a time like this. So that's where we come in. It's our job to be level-headed, to be fact-based, and to follow the truth wherever it leads.
And prosecutors revealed today that Karmelo Anthony was involved in an assault-type altercation at his school on February 4th that was handled internally by the school district. Other than that, he has an unblemished record, which is probably one of the reasons why the judge agreed to lower his bond.
Other than that, okay, so again, now that backs up his classmate's story, the young lady's story, that, yeah, he fights. So she obviously know this kid. And again, I don't think she was trying to throw him under the bus and make him look bad. She just was like, nah, I'm surprised he would kill somebody, because I don't know him to be like a super gangster, but I do know him to fight. He's a fighter. And here you go, at the school, February 4th, he got into a fight. But again, like he said at the end, that's the only thing he really has done. He just got in that fight, and he got caught with a knife. So was he scared of the person who he fought was going to show up at the track meet, and that's the reason why he was carrying the knife? Because he also brought a knife to school like the day before the track meet, or got in trouble for bringing a knife to school. We got to do more digging into that too, because that was being said at the beginning of this whole get down, man, that he had got suspended at school like the day before or 2 days before for carrying a knife at school.
So I'm just saying, the classmate came out and said, well, Karmelo, I know him for getting in fights and stuff. Now you got this report coming from the school saying, yeah, Karmelo had just recently gotten a fight. So again, the evidence here tends to support my thesis that most likely what happened is that Karmelo Anthony has anger issues, and he made a really, really, really bad decision to stab Austin Metcalf because of those anger issues. But that has not stopped the race hustlers from raising almost $500,000 for Karmelo, okay? Because these people swear up and down that this is self-defense, okay? It's self-defense, and Karmelo is innocent, and the people that think that he's guilty, well, they're just racist, right? You're just racist, okay? Because clearly this was self-defense, okay? And this is what I really want to talk about in this video, right? Because what is happening right now is exactly what I said would happen, okay? You're going to have one side, again, the pro-black side, defending Karmelo Anthony, right? They are just going to essentially make up facts. They're going to make up evidence. They're going to essentially warp reality to be what they want it to be. Okay. And again, the reason why they're doing this is because they don't have strong evidence. And Karmelo Anthony, at least as of right now, and this could change because there allegedly is video evidence. So this could change. But as of right now, Karmelo Anthony does not have a strong self-defense case. Okay. No. I mean, everybody knows this, right? That's the crazy part about this. Like the pro-blacks that are so passionate that this is self-defense. We all know that if the races were reversed, okay, if you had a white kid stab a black kid in the chest because the black kid told a white kid to get out of his seat and then push the white kid in response, we all know that these people who are defending Karmelo Anthony would not be saying that's self-defense, right? They would all understand the concept that you cannot use deadly force when you are not being met with deadly force. There was no reason for Karmelo Anthony to reasonably believe that there was a serious threat on his life or serious bodily harm. There was no reason for him to believe that.
For self-defense in Texas, because Texas is a stand-your-ground state. This is what he had to say about that.
In order for Karmelo to prevail on a self-defense defense, he has to establish that he reasonably feared for his life. And, that's a steep hill to climb, given the facts I've heard so far, but that's the standard here in Texas.
The facts that I've heard so far, what he's saying is, the facts that I heard in this case so far, like, he didn't have a reason to believe he was going to do bodily harm. Like, no.
Incredibly difficult for Carmelo's defense team to establish that Austin, the 17-year-old who wanted Karmelo out of his tent, represented a deadly threat or even serious bodily harm. Now, again, we don't know what was said. We don't know what was threatened.
From what we do know, it doesn't cause for you a stabbing. Nope.
But what Karmelo said was that he was going to put his hands on me. That's not he was going to kill me. That's not. I thought he was seriously going to hurt me. It was an offensive touching. But anyway, all he described was the potential for an offensive touching, which is not going to be enough without more. And the evidence is still coming.
That's all he described, and that's what I mean. I don't see how the black community that's trying to back this are trying to,